And then if you did shoot him and you stopped him from running any more people over, but the car continued on and smashed into something and got even one more, what would happen to you?
I'm Ryan Gresham, and this is Gun Talk Nation. All right, welcome into Gun Talk Nation. This Gun Talk Nation is brought to you by Wheeler, Smith & Wesson, Range Ready, and Colt Firearms. So today, Chris Cerino is with us. Chris Cerino, Director of Training Content, something like that. Producer of Training Content for Gun Talk.
That sounds about right.
Yeah. So you run the classes. You've trained a bunch of students here and other places, and sometimes you get to talk on TV with us too.
Yeah, I get to be on TV once in a while. I get to do cool things, and I live a life of awareness.
So we may have talked about this before, but talk about before Gun Talk. Why the heck are we talking to you right now? What your background in law enforcement and all that stuff? Just a little bit. Give some context.
Yeah, so I did my time in law enforcement, and I did some time with the feds. You know, my time with the air marshals was good because that was interesting work.
I'll tell you something funny. I was talking to a guy this week that he's with Department of Defense, and he's going to retire soon. And he's been to FLETC, and he was like talking about FLETC. I was like, oh yeah, and I mentioned you and being an air marshal. He goes, air marshal? Oh, those guys could shoot. They're trained up. That
was one thing we could do in the time. But yeah, I did that, and then I was a trainer for the state of Ohio, and I've been a constant student. I've been teaching at a lot of conferences over the years. I don't do so much anymore now that I work here, but I'm always a student, and I'm always reading and looking at things.
Yeah, you are for sure. It's not only your job, but it's good when your job is your interest. You are interested in your job stuff.
Well, I would hope that there's a lot of people interested in survival.
Yeah, it seems like you would think that safety is not a partisan issue.
Right.
But yeah, whatever.
Yeah, safety inherent, that's what we call it here.
So let's talk about, we're recording this on January 2nd, and we're still in the less than 48 hours aftermath of, you had the New Orleans attack on Bourbon Street, and we also had that explosion over there in Las Vegas. So we thought I'd like to give listeners, viewers, some tangible things they can take away from this. And I think there's people who listen to this show who are really into training and being prepared and carrying all the time and all those things. There's probably also, because we cover a lot of ground here, people who are more interested in guns and the fun part, target shooting and hunting and competition shooting, maybe less so about, like they're carrying 3 tourniquets on their person or whatever.
Right.
And that's cool too. But if we can be constructive and offer some ideas and thoughts or whatever. So, I mean, I'm going to assume people know, but the Cliff Note version is 3 a.m. after New Year's Eve, so New Year's Day morning. Mm-hmm. A guy takes off in a pickup truck driving down Bourbon Street. Everybody knows Bourbon Street, New Orleans, tourist attraction, busy street, parties.
He drove around
bars.
a police car. He drove past an officer standing on the corner.
Yep.
And then he gunned it because it was an electric car, so it went fast.
Yeah. So on purpose, running over people, and then got out of the car, started shooting, and police officers returned fire and took him down. That's what we know.
I heard reports he was shooting out of the car while he was driving down the street.
I heard that too.
True?
So yeah, we know as it's still unfolding, I guess is what we've heard. And by the time this comes out, there may be more information out there. So forgive us if some of the things aren't gelling with what the latest is, but
yeah,
based on what we know right now, they're saying
there was 3 cops that ultimately engaged them, and the bad guy wounded 2 of them, but they did gun him down, which is good.
And I think he got out with a rifle, is what they said.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So, I mean, how do we look at this with a prepared mindset?
Well, rule number 1: don't be there, because nothing good happens after dark. Even on New Year's, I know it's hard to resist that, and nothing's ever going to happen here. and in Little Podunk, New Orleans, which is really a small city in the grand scheme of what a big city is.
Yeah, people don't realize New Orleans has that cachet. It's a tourist attraction. I mean, really, in the city limits, it's probably less than 400,000 people.
Yeah, it's pretty small agency of law enforcement, where, Cleveland is a small city. And I think when I left Ohio, maybe they were 1,300 cops.
Yeah, I think New Orleans is less than 1,000.
Yeah. So, the size of the city doesn't matter. The amount of devastation can happen at any place. Of course, my kids were with me this weekend, and they wanted to go to Bourbon Street. They would have loved to go on down there for New Year's Eve, and there was just no way in hell that I was going to do that.
So that was brought up.
Oh, yeah. It was brought up to a point where my daughter-in-law actually said, yeah, I had already looked at some Airbnbs, and, so we wouldn't have to drive back. And there were some available, but I knew not to ask you.
Oh, she just knew.
Oh, yeah.
You were going to say. Well, so our offices are about an hour outside of New Orleans, kind of the suburbs of New Orleans. And so it's certainly people in our area go to the city to go to sports and concerts and yeah, they commute there for work. And I mean, it is a fun town, but we have so many people come in from out of town to film with us and make content. And some of them will be like, ooh, I think we're going to go stay an extra night and go see New Orleans. What do we always tell them?
Oh, take a gun.
Be careful.
Yeah, be careful. Take a gun. I mean, we try to arm people up, that if they need a loaner, we can always help them out. But I mean, honestly, you'd like to think you're never going to have to use it. No one has yet, but I wouldn't. You just don't go anywhere not prepared, and you certainly don't go somewhere like that after dark. Listen, if I was the bad guy in this event, I would have hit the place at 11:45. Because that's when the majority of people were there. Now, I think this guy might have been either disorganized or they weren't quite well prepared. Maybe he was charging his electric vehicle. I don't know.
Yeah.
Exactly. But I wouldn't have been hitting it at 3-something in the morning.
Yeah. I mean, you think
thinned out.
It's thinned out by then. I don't know if there was logic there or like you said, maybe he was just late to
the party. Yeah.
Literally.
But I would have been long gone, that's for sure, because as soon as that clock struck 12, I would have been out of there. And if you're smart, that's your plan, if you are going to go there. Chances are nothing's going to happen, though. You
know what's interesting? This just occurred to me. So they just tried to pass special gun restrictions in the French Quarter, which includes Bourbon Street.
Really? Yes, of course.
This past year, because New Orleans has a crime problem, which, I mean, every big town has a crime problem. New Orleans has one that's exacerbated because the justice system they're not incarcerating people. They're not sending people to jail, and they're understaffed, right? But they're trying to solve that with, let's just have more restrictions on people carrying guns.
Yeah, let's have restrictions on driving your car down a street that's loaded with people too.
Right.
That didn't work. But on the news today or yesterday, they did say that crime is down 50% since the new chief came in.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I don't know if I believe it.
It's hard to believe stats.
Yeah, I don't believe any of that. However, listen, even if you had a gun, I was talking to KJ. You weren't here this morning. We were already talking about it, hashing it out. And honestly, if I was there, KJ was there, I said, man, I'd have been running towards that car. I'd have been running as fast as I could to shoot that guy before he did anything else. And then I would also been running out there with about 50 other cops who don't know who I am with a gun. And even if I got there first, that'd be the time that the car would blow up because I'd shoot him and then he'd have some kind of dead man switch or something.
Right.
But hey, I would have, that's my mentality is to run towards it. If he doesn't run me over, I'm probably going towards him. But yeah, you've got to be perceptive. I mean, you can't look at that car come down the street and you can't say, they must have opened up the streets.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's what I worry about.
Which is a logical thing.
If you're standing there and it's loud on Bourbon Street, there's music, there's bars, it's and also an electric vehicle, right? So it's not making noise. Which I wonder if that's something to do with it, the noise. That's why they chose that. I don't know. But it's certainly, you got to be the unlucky guy. It's possible that it wasn't an awareness factor. It's just you're standing there as
you
this
get
thing
caught
speeds
out in the
through,
middle.
right? And it's your bad day. But
You zig when he zags. I mean, anything can happen, right?
But if you were carrying a gun, actually to be able to stop this from continuing, you would have to run towards it. And you couldn't really say, I'm going to, shoot this guy while he's driving by.
Yeah. I mean, and then if you did shoot him and you stopped him from running any more people over, but the car continued on and smashed into something and got even one more, what would happen to you? If the cop that was standing on the corner with his cruiser blocking the street had decided that this just doesn't look right and decided to shoot into that car before it picked up speed and sped down the street and killed all those people, what would have happened to that cop? Especially if they didn't find a gun in the car or explosives in the car.
Right.
Think about that.
Could have been just a drunk guy taking a wrong turn down a street that was no vehicles allowed.
Right. So we got to let some people get hurt first, and then we'll do something about it, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not sure what can be done in that moment as a civilian person carrying a gun.
Yeah, even as a cop. I mean, I'm sure there's cops listening to this show.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's guys out there driving around in circles arresting the same guy every 2 weeks.
That's
and they're listening to this and they're saying, yeah, I know, right? I would have shot into that car. But then you think, oh, what if I'd have shot in that car and then they come after me because they can't figure out why I shot the guy. But we don't know what the guy was doing, but now he's dead. So he can't tell us what he was doing, even though he was going to lie and say, I'm sorry, I took a wrong turn.
Right.
Right.
Well, and there is the whole don't be there thing. And I think that if you haven't been paying attention, hopefully you're starting to, that these big crowded events are targets.
Yeah, everywhere you go is a target. I think about it every time I go into Costco. When I look at those cash registers and the mounds of people, same with the airport. It's the same thing, although, I'm at Costco more than I'm at the airport. I walk in there and I think, man, if I walked in these front doors and just whipped out an AR from underneath my coat, I could get a lot of people before somebody took me out.
And I think that's a good mental exercise. It doesn't mean Chris Cerino is thinking about, plotting and scheming.
No,
but I think that's
not.
why you have to be able to do that thought exercise to be good at what you do. The people who really aggravate me are the ones who said, I can't imagine. No one could have imagined this would have happened.
Yeah,
A mayor or a police
imagine?
chief. No one could imagine that. No, that's your job to imagine it. In fact, you had, because you had barricades on Bourbon Street, but on New Year's we decided not to use them.
Yeah, well, the thing is, people call me all the time. They're like, hey, man, what do you think about this? And I tell them, I said, well, this is what I would have done, and I would have done a much better job. And they're like, man, you're so smart. And I tell them, I said, you have to think like a criminal to avoid being a victim. Mm-hmm. If you don't think like a criminal to avoid being a victim, you're crazy, man. Because if you think it can't happen to you, read a good book. Read The Unthinkable by Amanda Ripley. I get nothing from that. Just buy that book, read it, and the subtitle is Who Survives and Who Doesn't When the Unthinkable Happens. It is amazing. It's amazing how people just sit there in disbelief and die.
Yeah. That couldn't be happening.
It can't be.
Why is that guy driving down the road? Why are bodies flying while he's driving?
Lady on the news this morning said, but it was New Year's, so I thought I heard gunshots, but I was like, it's New Year's, so it's got to be fireworks.
I know.
Which it could be, but there's a difference in the sound. However, most people haven't been exposed to gunfire either.
Mm-hmm.
And those are things,
How about the book Left of Bang?
I found it to be very dry and difficult to get through. and what it was to me, it was just so much common sense that it was boring.
Well, for some
in the
people,
entire,
not maybe,
yes,
right?
exactly. So in the entire book, basically what you're looking for is anomalies, because when there's repetition, like you do certain things every day, we come to the office, we stop at the gas station, we get a biscuit, we put some gas in our tank, we do this. Does it look different today? What's different today? So you're picking up on anomalies, and I don't have a lot of anomalies between here and the country where I live. But if you go to the bank every week. You go to the bank every week and you walk in and everybody's standing really still and kind of just looking wide-eyed. That means something's up. It's not the normal day.
Yeah.
That means turn around and get out, or maybe you're already screwed. I mean, if you're in there that far.
We don't, as humans, we don't want to believe something bad is happening. And there's that instinct to say this is probably nothing will get you hurt.
Yeah, the fire alarm goes off here all the time. I mean, Hannah's cooking, KJ's cooking, the fire alarm goes off, and I never flinch. However, I always think, I got all these exits. I'm probably good.
That's a good exercise, I guess.
I just think about it. It's like, this is where my exits are. I know what I need to do. If I start smelling smoke, I'm probably going to go towards it first, but I know how to get out. And it's just, there's in that book, there's so many stories, and there's one about an old club that was in Cincinnati, Coventry, Kentucky, and how these people all died because they all just sat there and waited for the firemen to save them instead of just getting up and leaving the building. And then by then it was too late. They couldn't get out.
Really?
Yeah, there's tremendous stories about people that didn't prepare. They didn't look at escape routes. They didn't think about escaping. They didn't think about, all the possibilities that they could use to survive should something bad happen.
Just play the what if game a little bit.
Yes. If then, when this happens, then I'm going to do that. I had a blowout on the highway one time, and I always planned in my mind what I was going to do if I had a blowout and I was in heavy traffic, and how my car might behave, and would I be able to control it and get off to the side of the road and do things. And I did it. And my ex-wife says, "Man, you were so calm." I said, "I've done it in my mind 1,000 times, babe."
Yeah.
It was just funny.
All right. After the break, let's talk about gear and training and how do we approach this new reality.
All right.
Colt revolvers stand the test of time, and they've added more to the lineup. The Colt Grizzly is a rugged .357 Magnum 6-shot revolver featuring stainless steel construction and adjustable sights. The Colt Kodiak is your ultimate companion for big game hunting or backcountry carry in .44 Magnum with a 4.25-inch ported barrel. See the Colt revolver line at Colt.com.
Range Ready is where we run our classes, rangereadystudios.com. So go over there to check out the classes and events that we have going on. These things go fast. Another little known thing about Range Ready is we will provide you a pistol if you need one for running a class, or even an AR. But there's no charge for that. We don't rent you a gun and there's an upcharge. It's just available for your use. So it's a pretty cool deal. Go check it out, rangereadystudios.com.
The new Smith & Wesson Bodyguard 2.0 bridges the gap between a gun that's easy to carry and one that's easy to shoot. Small and lightweight at only 9.8 ounces, but plenty of .380 auto with 10 and 12 round magazines. See the new Bodyguard at smith-wesson.com.
You know that Silencer Central makes it easy to buy silencers, but they also have their whole line of Banish suppressors, and the newest one is the Banish Speed K TI. TI for titanium. Extremely lightweight and compact. This is a really cool ultra compact 223 556 dedicated silencer. Weighs only 8.6 ounces. It's 4 inches long, and it has controlled flow technology. We have used this on the range. We've been impressed at how light it is. Doesn't change the weight and balance of the gun, and also still very quiet. The Banish Speed K TI from Silencer Central.
Upgrade your workbench with Wheeler tools. Wheeler tools are specifically designed for the job. Fat wrenches, AR tools, gunsmithing tools, and scope mounting kits make the job easier, and you know it's done right. Check out complete armorer's kits, purpose-built screwdriver sets, or even scope rings. WheelerTools.com. That's WheelerTools.com.
Okay, Chris, so we're starting to see these things, this whole driving a truck through a crowd thing. We've seen it quite a lot in Europe and not as much here, but this is one of the new things that you're seeing. Does this change the gear that you carry on your person as a EDC Everyday Carry?
No, it doesn't. Honestly, I'm at fault for not carrying more emergency stuff, medical supplies on me, but I do have them in my truck, which doesn't do me any good on Bourbon Street. But when I go certain places at certain times, especially even Costco, I try to remind myself, take a flashlight because should the power go out in that giant building, should somebody knock out the power in there and start shooting, I don't know how I would navigate it.
That's a good point. There's no windows.
Yeah, there's no windows. There's no ambient light. There's nothing. And there's going to be people just standing there and other people going crazy. And then when gunfire erupts, everybody goes crazy. And how do you know where you're going to go and how to get out?
Also, at the risk of throwing out an obvious tip, if you're in a scenario like that, most people are going to run for the front door. You don't have to run for the front door.
Find a door.
Find a door, and maybe a back door is going to be less crowded and less obvious.
Right. Maybe it doesn't open, but you know what? If it's the closest one, I don't think it's held you up that much. I mean,
yeah.
So I like to think about what I'm going to carry. I definitely, there are certain times when I'll put a spare mag in my pocket because maybe I need that. And honestly, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't be going where I'm going that I need a spare mag. But if I'm going to a big thing like Jazz Fest, something like that, if I'm going to be that far into a gigantic crowd and have to fight my way out, that's somewhere where I would consider taking a spare mag. You know, that's just an example because you're not allowed to carry guns there, and I would never do that.
Yeah, you can't.
Yeah, you can't. But I'm just saying, like, that's one of those things. So, you know, a flashlight, why do I need it during the day? Well, when you're inside somewhere that's dark, it's like being a cop and getting out of your car and you don't put your flashlight in your D-ring. Well, now they don't have that. Everybody has pocket lights. But if you don't have your flashlight, when you go in this lady's house and she says, I heard something bump in the basement, and you're like, all right, turn the lights on. And she's like, oh, I'm sorry, there's no lights down there. Do you handle the bump in the basement, or you go back out to your car like an idiot and get the flashlight?
Well, talk about what should be the expectation of your training, I'll be specific, your shooting. What should your abilities be in this day and age?
John Correa just had a big thing on Facebook about that and what people should really be able to do. And most people are lucky to hit the cardboard silhouette. You know, a 6-round bill drill isn't even a 6-round bill drill for most people because the fact that you can not even put one in an A zone in all the time in the world, what you need to do is you need to be confident and comfortable with your gun. And if you're not, you use it to defend yourself when you're in the thick of it. And otherwise, you're probably better off staying out of it.
Well, we were talking about this with hunting. I have a buddy and we were saying, you know, what should be the expectation if you don't know, if you're kind of like getting into this and you're like, I don't know. I mean, I go to the range, I shoot my carry gun, I go boom. Boom.
Yeah, because you're only allowed to fire one round every so many seconds.
And they all hit the paper. So, I mean, hey, that's pretty good.
Yeah, you're a shooter.
Is that the expectation that they should aim for? Or could they say, well, what should I be doing, Chris?
Well, what I would like to see more people do is carry a gun with the thought that they're going to use it to fight their way out of trouble. Rather than going into trouble and expecting to save the day.
Don't run towards the truck.
Yeah, most people shouldn't. And honestly, avoidance is number one. That means don't be where you're not supposed to be. You know, if somebody shoots a bullet down the street, don't be standing in the middle of the street when the bullet's coming down there. You know, just stay behind cover.
Move.
Yeah, get out of the way. Just avoidance is number one, and that's mine too. You know, my gun is number one to fight my way out of trouble. But if I am afforded the opportunity to save others, you can bet your sweet bippy that I'm going to be going towards it.
But we're not there to stop crime.
No, we're not there to be the law enforcement. Law enforcement is here to arrive on scene and write down what happened. They're not there to save you. They're there to document the event and then try to find the person that killed you.
It is rare, and this did happen. I mean, the cops did run towards this situation and engage the guy as he got out of his truck and put him down. That's really rare, though. And this was
It's happening more, though.
And
It
I'll
is
tell you,
happening
like,
more.
I mean, Bourbon Street on New Year's Eve. I used to live in New Orleans and used to be young and used to do that stuff. Now I don't do it anymore.
It was a safer world then.
But I mean, typically they're going to have multiple cops on every block of Bourbon Street and frankly of the whole French Quarter.
Oh yeah, and they're going to be in pairs too. It's not going to be individuals, which is great. But yeah, you have to count on the fact that those cops can actually run and they can shoot too. And luckily we had some hard chargers out there, and I know there's a bunch of you guys out there, so don't think that I'm always crapping on the cops. Just because I was one, I can. Because you guys know about the rods, and they're out there. They're retired on duties, and it's hard. And it's true. That's what they call them, the rods. But yeah, I mean, you're always going to have those people. And then, I mean, I've seen people that I didn't expect much of also save the day. So you never know how people are going to react and rise to the occasion, or, you know, potentially fail. But you have to take your safety as your own responsibility first. Number one, don't be there. Number two, nothing good happens after dark. Don't be around after dark. Number three, be prepared for something bad to happen, because if your first reaction is that you can't do that to me, it's like a cop getting punched in the face and saying, you can't do that. I'm a cop. You can't hit me. Listen, it happens all the time. If you think you're never going to get punched in the face just because you have a badge on, you're wrong. So that's number three. And then when bad things do happen, number four, be prepared to come to your own rescue. Whether that means you're physically fit enough to run, and that means like beating Joe Louis, because you run right out of your shoes when bad things happen sometimes. I mean, I've done it when I was a younger man. But, you know, be prepared to come to your own rescue. And that means to understand what cover is, to where you might be safe, just being aware.
And resist the temptation. And hopefully people listening to this don't have this mindset, but resist the temptation to film it with your phone. And when we say get away, we don't mean like step off of the sidewalk into a building. I mean, go blocks away.
Yeah.
Because like you just said earlier, it may be a guy driving a truck down a street to hit people. Or it may be a guy driving a truck down the street and shooting guns out the window. Or it may be him driving the truck down the street, shooting guns out, and the whole entire truck is rigged with a lot of explosives that could blow up the whole block.
Well, I think this one had some in it.
So like, if you're standing there on a balcony thinking, well, I can't get hit by this car, you may be too close.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you just have to go run away and live to fight another day. If you have the skills to do something, know when you can do that, because not all the time is it appropriate to do something. I have every intention of avoiding danger, but I also have a lot of intention to go into the fray also, because I couldn't live with myself if I didn't do something, being the person I am, who's trained obviously and unafraid. So, but you have to be careful, man, because every bullet leaves the barrel of your gun. It's got to land somewhere. And if you kill Mrs. Smith and Mr. Smith is leaning over her while you're sitting there filling out your police report because you killed her, you may have won the day and saved the day. But that's something that you have to live with for the rest of your life, whether or not you get sued or not, or get in trouble for it, which you probably won't. But man, that's something that's hard.
Yeah. Where do you think we go from here? What do you think that people need to be prepared for this year?
I know you already asked me earlier. You're like, yeah, so what do we change? What do we do different? For me, nothing. I do everything exactly the same way I've always been doing. I try to stay aware. I catch myself in code white, which means I have blinders on and I'm not paying attention to anything.
You're wearing flip-flops.
Yeah, bad for running, worse for fighting. I think about snap myself out of that white space, you know, and I find myself sometimes, a lot of times, it's strange how much I look at people's hands when they're approaching me. And I see their face after I'm looking at them, because I'll see them reaching in their pants and doing things with their hands. And I must make some kind of move where I like come to a pause and then I look at them and they look at me like I got something growing out of my forehead. And I'm like, hey, how you doing? You know, and it's just weird because, you know, you're aware. I just do what I always do, which is watch what can hurt you. That's people. On people, it's hands. From their hands, I look at their faces. I look for that intent. What's going on? I look for anomalies. I look for things that are out of place. I try to be prepared. I'm not as prepared as everybody thinks I am. Okay. I'm not wearing a tourniquet all the time on me. I don't carry one. I have I have the ability to do that. I wear shorts a lot. I don't wear a tourniquet on my ankle. If I was going to last night down there or whenever that was, New Year's Eve, I probably would put one on.
If you were
know?
going to Bourbon Street for New Year's Eve, you would have probably been fairly equipped.
Yes. I would have been more equipped than I am normally on every day.
Yeah.
But my number one tool is avoidance, and my number one tool is perception. My number 2 tool is avoidance. How about that? Can I say that?
It works.
Makes
works
sense?
for me. Yeah. So look around, but be aware. And really, the whole gun thing, it's fun to practice. It's important to be prepared and be proficient. But there's a lot of stuff before you get to that point. The gun's not like when you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. A gun's not necessarily the answer for most things.
Yeah, and I can make people gunslingers. I mean, we do it all the time here.
Yeah.
And they're always amazed at what they can do.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd like to think that it's like, what's that called? Comfort food, because it's stick to your ribs kind of training. I think it goes a long way because, I've had a lot of people in shootings after classes and not always right after. But, the training that you get, I mean, are you just shooting at a big silhouette and then the instructor's patting you on the back and saying, yeah, that's good. That's good. Watch this. I mean, it's not good because there's good and there's not good. That's a piece of paper glued to cardboard, stapled to a stick. It's not moving or shooting back at you.
I always tell people when they're here, you've heard me say it. I'm like, you just gotta like roll with it with Chris, because if he sounds, a little aggressive, it's just because he really cares. He really wants you to do well.
Yeah, I demand performance and I get it. And I mean, that's one of the things I'm proud of. I won't change a damn thing in any of my classes, and I won't change anything. I don't care what anybody says. I'm not going to do some flavor of the day stuff because I know what wins the day, and that's good fundamentals, good solid fundamentals, and after that, then go shoot some matches. I mean, look at what the boys have done.
Mm-hmm. So as we wrap it up, so you kind of mentioned you've trained gunslingers, you've had people get into shootings after training with you, mostly law enforcement folks.
Mostly.
What was one of the ones where he called you, and what was his thought process while this was going on?
Oh yeah, well he shot the guy twice, but he hit him because the guy kept moving, and then. He shot him 2 more times, but before he did that, he said, I heard your voice in my head say, hey, jackass, how about aligning the sights and pressing the trigger? At which point he, put 2 good hits on target
Better
and
hits.
dropped him. Yes. But I said, yeah, that sounds exactly like something I would have said. And he was one of the guys we had to hold his hand in the class. Like I put my buddy Rob Gadash with him. Rob sat with him. I said, just stay with him. He's a mess. Mm-hmm. And that's what we do. If we have enough instructors, we can do that.
Yeah.
That's a cool thing to get somebody to get over the hump.
Hey, jackass.
Hey, jackass. How about lining the sights up and pressing the trigger?
In the middle of the gunfight, this is what he's hearing.
Yeah, well, you gotta have some kind of voice in your head, because sooner or later it becomes your own voice, and then it goes away. And
your
then
own voice is just going, oh crap, oh crap, oh crap. That's not real helpful.
And then when you start failing, your voice comes back and says, hey, jackass,
mm-hmm.
You know what to do.
Yeah.
That's exactly what happens.
All right, you guys be careful out there. Be prepared. Maybe you do a little training this year. Training, not shooting.
Yeah, there's a difference.
There's a difference. That's it for us. We'll see you next time on Gun Talk Nation.